So hi, I'm John. It's a pleasure being here again. Been in this spot a few times in Bratislava and always love to come back. And today we're going to talk about growth hacking and traction for startups. So basically we're going to talk about this, how you can achieve growth. Sometimes the detour, especially for startups, to find the right way, but let's hope that we all at some point, especially you founders, will find your way. But first, just to adjust the talk, we prepared a small questionnaire on Slido. If you want to use Slido, join at slido.com, #thespot. So what I would like to know from you guys, if you want to vote with your mobile phones, and those who are watching on live stream, who of you is like a marketer, who of you is a designer, who is like a developer, and who is like a general business guy, meaning everything else except the marketer. That will be really valuable to know, because based on that we can make some fine adjustments on the talk later on. Okay, well, 100% marketers now. Maybe just to meanwhile encourage you, this should be a discussion, so feel free anytime to enter a discussion with me, even while I'm in my presentation, but especially we want to have time later on to discuss with you guys and get your experiences, because I'm giving this talk, but I'm by far not an expert on all there is in traction and growth hacking, and especially not an expert on all the channels there are. So we're really good to get your opinions on that. General business guy, anyone hasn't voted and wants to just tell me what they do? Yeah? Are you still voting? Voting. Okay. Anyone who doesn't vote on Slido and wants, yeah? A developer?
Yes.
Okay. So we count one more. Well, you would be the only developer then, if that's true. Who else is developer? 2? He's hiding. He's voting 3. All right. Okay, yeah, developers are catching up. It's good. Usually, is that raising your hand? Is that developer too? No, it was just. Are you one too? Oh no, okay. All right, so from those who voted, marketers, here you go. All right, so it's a pretty good mix, fair to say. That means I hope the talk is then right. I try to keep it, simple, general, and everything. But okay, I hope even the majority of marketers and business guys can find something here, and maybe it's valuable for them. But before talking about traction, a little bit of myself. My name is Can, written as you can see, C-A-N, like yes you can. It's a Turkish name. I was born and grew up in Austria, where I've been quite active in the startup ecosystem. It all started with i5 Invest, which back then was an incubator, an early stage investor. Now they're shifting towards being an M&A advisory for startups. Then I joined an online payment startup called Payolution as employee number 1, part of the founding team. It was acquired by Skrill, so technically for a while I was employed by Skrill, which is a big payment company and number 2 behind PayPal when it comes to e-wallets. At some point I also joined the guys at Pioneers Festival. You probably know it. Who knows it? Any fans? Yeah, fans. So helped there a lot. I'm one of the moderators there, which helped to really get to know a lot of international startups and share experience there with them. I co-founded also at some point AustrianStartups, which is like an NGO that helps to improve the ecosystem in Austria and connects everyone, and does even a little bit, I don't want to say lobbying, but tries to take some influence in politics about what the best ecosystem would look like. And my last stop was I joined the founding team behind Hitbox, which is like a live video streaming platform for games and esports. If you know Twitch, you've heard of it, which was acquired for about $1 billion by Amazon. So it's definitely the competitor trying to do things few different. And even though, even though there's a big player in the market, still a rapidly growing company, and now I was the chief marketing officer there. So that's me, and based from all my experience on the one hand, and all the dozens and hundreds of entrepreneurs I've met, worked with together, coached, heard their stories, heard their pitches, or learned from the experience, I kind of distilled and tried to bring it on what's about traction. But before I talk about traction, I think anyone here in this room who doesn't know this quote by Paul Graham, that startups are all about growth. Anyone who doesn't know it? Everyone knows it. Awesome. Okay, so you all know that startups are about growth. Maybe we have one. And a startup is basically a company designed to grow fast. And the only essential thing that counts, according to PG, that's what we call it from Y Combinator, is growth. That's really, really important. That's a baseline for all my argumentation later on. Okay, the only thing that counts is growth to define startups. Then another one, and you will have me actually quoting a few of the pioneer speakers, kind of got inspired by them and tried to get everything together. Fred Stone, who's now a partner of Excel Excel Partners, which is a really well-known VC, said there are 3 things they look for in startups: team, tech, and traction. So there's this word, this magic word, traction, that we hear all the time, right? And we're today only going to talk about traction. We're not going to talk about the other things that define your startup and may lead your startup to success. So traction is basically growth. That's the short version of it, all right? So PG and Fred Lister basically talk about the same thing. And when we talk about growth and when we talk about traction, what we're going to do today is we take a bird view, all right? We don't go to ultra specifics in every single channel that's possible there, but my aim is to try to give you the right paradigm on how to see this and how to navigate yourself in this world, because like a lot of startups don't do it right. And last thing, everything I say is based on my experience and the experience of others. I also quote a lot of people here. This is not binary. There is neither one way that one thing is the only thing to do or the best way to do, nor, you know, everything that I say must apply to you all the time. So just a quick question for developers: what is the best programming language out there? There is no definite answer, right? Depends on where you are, who you are, what you want to do. Different programming languages and your taste suit better. The same is with traction. And questions anytime. Also happy to take questions from Slido, from a guest watching on the live stream. So, you know, to build my case, again, a startup is a temporary organization that is designed in search for a repeatable and scalable business model. Steve Blank, you all know him, he wrote this, like the founding stone for the lean startup movement. Why am I saying this? Because like one part of it, the scalable and repeatable business model, when we look at what the business model is, the business model describes a rationale how an organization / a startup creates value, delivers value, and captures value. So this would be typically having a product, bringing it to the market, and getting paid for it, right? Delivers value is the real big part here, and it's an essential part of your startup. And when we look at what delivers value mean, is how to bring it to the market, how to get customers, right? So what does it have to do with traction? I couldn't resist, I'm sorry for a long quote, but it was so good I had to take it. Naval Ravikant, who is the founder of AngelList, he said, traction is basically quantitative evidence of customer demand. So if you're an enterprise software, initial traction may be 2 or 3 early customers who already pay for you. Or if you're in consumer software, the bar might be as high as hundreds of thousands of users. And then I love this part of the quote. It's like the US Supreme Court definition of porn. You know it when you see it. Right, this is traction. When you see it, you can't ignore it. You understand it's there, even though the measurement and the definition might change in detail depending on what your company is and in which sector you are. So ultimately, and that's really, really important for everything that comes later, my case is that, you know, the US Constitution guarantees you the pursuit of happiness, every individual. And I'm saying your startup constitution obliges you, basically from all what I've heard, to the pursuit of growth. All right? Traction is getting growth. And it's really, really important. If you remember everything, if you forget everything else, remember it's your prime directive, growth, all right? Your pursuit of it. Good. The issue is, a startup, as we said, is in the search for a business model. And it's quite interesting because when we talk about lean startup and product development and management tools or philosophies, people understand that they create a product, have to adjust it, and then, you know, find something that fits to the market as a product-wise. But it's not always that they understand that also traction or growth drivers they have to search for. So the whole thing we're going through is basically requiring you doing later on exploration if you haven't done it already. So remember, it's an exploration. I don't have the right answers for you. It's your job to find the right answers for your startup. And let's hope that the things we talk about will help you doing that. So there's one major difference between, you know, achieving traction / growth hacking / inducing growth. And the separating factor is if you have product market fit or not. So for those who don't know what product market fit is, there are like various definitions. The ones that I liked is actually a quite very old one. I think it was among the first ones that talked about product market fit in the blog post is Mark Andreessen, who's a very known investor. He really writes a good blog. He said product market fit is being in a good market with a product that can satisfy the market. He doesn't speak about that you have to have the best product. And he says good market. When is a good market? Good market is then when also the timing is right. You know, you can have the best product out there, but if the timing is so bad that there is one kind of monopoly out there that's so difficult to overcome, it's going to be very difficult to achieve product market fit. Or there are also cases of startups that launched were ahead of the time, you know, who should have launched 2 years later, but the market was ready for it. So again, it's not about having the best product, but it's being in a good market and having your product, and that's when the fit comes in that satisfies that market. And what satisfies the market is defined by the market, not by you, right? But then you achieve product market fit. There's a more interesting definition from Sean Ellis, who's the CEO of Quadro and founded Growth Hackers. He's actually like one of the growth gurus out there, that growth driving for Dropbox, Stripe, and other companies. And he has like this questionnaire that he did, all right, before he kind of jumped on as advisor or as growth driver or like VP of growth or the guy who's responsible for it to a company. He asked the existing users, if we took away that product from you, all right, would you be very disappointed, somewhat disappointed, not disappointed, or not applicable because I'm not using it anymore or don't want to use? And he said, and I think it's a very interesting definition, that when 40% or more of the users of any given sample of the user base says that they will be very disappointed, then it's but you know that you have product market fit. Now think about what that means. It's a very different question than do you like a product or what do you like about the product. It's really something, if you have it now and if I take it away from you, are you pissed? And if people say, yes, I'm pissed, I need it, then you have something which he defines, or a lot of people call it a must-have product. And that's a definite sign, probably a very difficult one to measure if you don't do the surveys, but it's a very definite sign that you have the product market fit. Definite plus minus, right? If 39% say it should be fine. But like if 80% say I would be really pissed, then you have a great product, you know, that people in this market like. So the product market fit basically is, from the startup pyramid, the basis. Because a lot of things change after you achieve it, and the rules are different before you have it. We will come to that. But assume you had this, all right? Then you come to a phase where it transitions to growth. The whole company changes. Also what you have to do on the marketing side. And then ultimately once this transition made, because the organization had to change, grew bigger, you can, you know, be in full growth mode. But what do we, you know, and the difference, just to elaborate, because the reason why I'm telling this is if you talk with people or if you research on the internet, you get all kind of tips, all kind of what should I do to get traction, how growth hacking tips and stuff like that, right? There's a huge difference in how you can apply these things if you're pre-product market fit or if you're after product market fit. All right, let's talk about what. So before you have the product market fit, you're usually, when it comes to traction, a phase of exploration. You, on the one hand, explore a bit of the product, which is the one that sticks with users, which is a must-have product, but you're actually here exploring also how can I bring my product to a customer, which channels are there, right? And it's more about, you know, experimenting, finding out, testing. Like you do with your product, you do the same with the channels, how to bring it to the market, to attract customers. And here, your main goal is to get initial traction, to keep it going, right? And here, it's fine, and sometimes actually a necessity to do a lot of things manually, in the sense of, you know, non-scalable things, both to learn how it works and to experiment here. So there are two scenarios from pre-product market fit. Either you really had this must-have product and you can manage to go to after product market fit, or you die. And to be honest, like, I mean, the ultimate reason why startups fail is they run out of money as a lagging indicator, but the leading indicators are they don't achieve product market fit, and or usually combined, they have premature scaling. So they try to transition to the growth phase we talked about before they actually have the product market fit. So I hope, you know, don't fall into this trap, try to understand where you are. But once you have product market fit, growth, creating growth and getting traction means very different things. It's about, you know, what we call now hardcore growth hacking. It's about optimizing. You probably have 10 channels, some ready that work well for you, and you want to optimize the hell out of them, you know, get efficient. It's about scaling, and it's about automating all of, especially inbound processes. So remember that we're in two different worlds, both for the advice that you hear from people, as well as from what we talked today, try to think of where you are, so it explains what you need to do. So the fact is, and talking about tips over the internet, right? You can find hundreds, thousands of pages and tips of what to do for growth hacking, how to get traction, how to grow your startup. There's one fact. Every single marketing channel out there at some point have worked for companies at a given time. Every single one. Actually, if it wouldn't be a working channel, the channel wouldn't exist. Very bluntly, if no one would use Google AdWords and would believe that it works for them or actually had success stories with it, then the whole channel would not exist. If no one would put print advertisement in the newspaper, and no one would believe it works and no one saw kind of results, it wouldn't exist. All right? So all channels exist because they worked at some company for a time. The problem is that because of that, there's a lot of information and best practices that people tell to you about the different channels. But it does not might apply to you. And that's really main message here. So, and the reason is because every company is different. And one company, even if it's the same company, might be even different depending on its stage. Not only pre-product market fit and after product market fit, but depending on where it evolves. So that's why different channels, and I think that's a really key message here, because that's something people really underestimate, don't think about. When they think, oh, what should I do? How can I get customers, right? So different channels work differently well for different companies and industries. But also, most channels work even differently well for the same company over time. So something that worked 3 years ago for you well might not work well for you anymore, especially in these days of changing channels and faster moving economies. And there are two reasons why you should keep that in mind. The one is the so-called survivor bias, right? So those startups who had product market fit, who successfully had traction, they can of course go there and say, hey, that worked for us, it's also going to work for you. Beware of that. They survived. You hear the story from one startup out of hundreds others in relation for that one where it didn't work. You know what I mean? So for them it worked. And of course they can say, yeah, it works, look at me, I'm successful. It doesn't mean it's going to work for you. Not only because of the timing, most likely the timing would already be an issue, because until you hear that story, that they have been successful, maybe acquired or whatever, and when they start to deploy these traction techniques, 2 years pass, maybe more. And number two is, their business might, for them it might work, but it might not work for yours. And then another thing, and that's really, happens really often, and I urge you to think about it yourself, is what we call your own channel bias. So you as a founder, you maybe are not using Twitter, you are using Facebook, you are using Reddit, you are, not using Instagram, you don't read newspapers, you don't watch TV. So there's a lot of habits that you have, a lot of channels that you actively consume. And because of that, and because of other things like, believing that a channel is evil, like you can say, I don't want to call people. I hate calling people and doing sales. You have a bias towards certain channels that you kind of intuitively prefer. But that's very dangerous, because you leave out some other channels, and channels are just a medium to acquire customers and to communicate with them and to get them to know that your product's out there and get them to buy it. You might not think of them because you're not used to them. But that's the biggest danger. Ignoring channels that might well work extremely well for you, but you never know because you don't try them, because you have a bias towards certain ones. That's really important. Think of it, every one of us does it, even I do it. And you have to kind of slap yourself in the face and say, okay, is there any channels that I've ignored? And we'll talk later about which channels they are. And also, why do things change? Because it's the so-called law of shitty click-throughs. I'm sorry if that's now on tape. What it says is that when a channel emerges newly, right, usually it works well. And because it works well, at that time the channel grows. For example, the best example are banner ads. All right, the time when banner ads started, it was actually a time where a lot of people clicked on these banners, like the classical display ads and all the full take, half take side banner on the website. It worked really well. So a lot of people jumped onto this bandwagon and invested in banner ads. But what happened? At some point, a lot of web pages got crowded a lot with banners, and people got used to them. And everyone is trying to get attention on the same level with banners. I'm exaggerating a bit right now, okay? And what happened that over time, the channel deteriorated, and the click-throughs went really literally lower and lower and lower, lower, lower. And that's something where we kind of generalize and say that happens for every channel over time. Time might be shorter, longer, but over time, once the channel gets overcrowded, because it works well for you, all the other people also jump on board. Suddenly what happens is it starts working less for you because it's over bombarding customers. As the competition for that channel goes up, prices go up, so it's also more expensive for you. And then, you know, the click-throughs go down, 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 down. And besides the law of the shitty click-throughs, in general, channels can change. Best example, search engine optimization. So doing search engine optimization, what was required to be ranked highly by Google 5 years ago, is a very different world than it is now. They introduced a lot of rules, a lot of things changed. They look at more and more things now than they used 5 years ago. So if someone tells you, yeah, 5 years ago SEO worked awesome, you have to do fully that, like, not so sure, right? Also, they get, as we said, overcrowded, degrade, and ultimately also become more and more expensive. So what does it mean for you as a founder or a startup? It means for you, you're basically constantly, especially if you're pre-product market fit, in search for the right channels. You want to find that channel or the channels that will get you traction, not the ones that were successful for someone else, right? And the ultimate thing that you have to ask yourself, assuming you have tried to experiment on all channels getting users and customers, and you just don't get any customers, you really have to ask yourself, do you have product market fit? Because the likelihood that you have a great product and it just happened to be that there's no channel out there that reaches your customers is zero, basically. All right, so it's like a feedback loop for you. And that's really, really important, and that's something a lot of startups don't do, especially in CE. Not, I think the guys in the US do it a bit differently. While you do product development, all right, so before you even launch a beta, you should explore the channels already. Experiment with them, gain the understanding of the channels and see what works. Because waiting till you have a product out and then asking yourself, how do I bring it to customers, might be quite late time. It is a late time. And we'll talk about it also why it's so late a bit later on. So, having said that, there's one unfortunate fact, which is, you know, you can rarely predict which channel is going to work for your company at which stage. And I say this because if you talk with a lot of like younger founders, like first-time founders who just started building on a company, and you ask them, okay, so great, you're building on your product, you're going to launch next month your beta, sounds awesome, but how do you want to bring it to market? He says, well, I'm going to do Facebook, it's going to work. Why is it going to work? Well, I've seen it work for others, it's going to work for me. No. If you haven't tested for you, you don't know it's going to work for you. So the earlier on you test, the better it is. There are actually mindsets of people that will tell you that what you should do as a founder or as a founding team is focusing 50% early stage before you launched, focusing 50% on product and focusing 50% on traction. You know, especially in Central Europe, we have this, if they're the product first and then we try to sell it. You know, better is if you do both at the same time. So how do you get the solution to this dilemma? That you should find the right channel, but don't know which channel works best for you, and you can't rely on the experience of others, especially those in the past. So in my kind of mindset that I want to present you is, first, you have to get the right mindset, right? And all we talked about now was more or less about getting the right mindset of not relying that a channel worked for company A is going to work for you well. Second is you have to understand the fundamentals regardless of channels. Then third, you go into the channels, and we'll talk about the channels later on, which ones they are. Try to understand them, try to see which one works for them, which one you choose to experiment with. And then you do experiments on them. And from these experiments, you get data from the channels. And based on that data, that influences, again, your mindset regarding what is great for my company, which channel will work for me. So basic example. If you were the founder that haven't experimented and just launched public beta and said, Facebook is going to work for me, you had the mindset, Facebook, great. And with Facebook, you didn't probably even know if it was like targeted social display ads or just something that you rely on people virally sharing, but you said Facebook is great. Then you started, and then you need to do these things, and you were like, well, then there are different things that I can target. Which groups should I target here? If I want to do promoted posts, and you dig into the channel, and you either now smart and learn from that experiment that you just did that it worked or didn't work, and get data and change the mindset. Right? Unfortunately, people don't approach this actively. Unfortunately, a lot of times, what I see at least is they bet a lot on one channel, one strategy, and take too much investment there, do it too late, and after only a lot of failures realize, damn it didn't work, I have to change my mindset now. Do it proactively. That will help you, always. So, talk about mindsets. I have this 3-rule thing, all right? So on mindset, I think one thing is that you have in mind is getting traction from the start, all right? Again, growing equals getting traction, and this is equally your job like building a product, ideally in parallel. It's not someone else's job, it's your job as a founder. And second, the good thing about if you do things in parallel is all the lessons learned from traction, both what is incoming from consumers as feedback and also seeing which channels work for you or not, you can integrate sometimes into the product. All right, so if, for example, specific social networks, which are altogether actually one channel, work extremely well for you, you can prioritize them and add them into your product, sharing features, for example. The second, and that's quite important, we can't go extremely into detail, but like to get the right mindset. Ultimately, what you measure is what you get. If you have like one thing that you measure, no matter what it is usually the one thing that you subconsciously try to optimize for and try to look at. Did something work? What does my measure say, yes or no? So it's really important, and we'll talk about measures later, but it's really important before you start, I want to grow, understand what growth means for you as a company. So for a B2B software as a service, a growth metric might be very, very different than from a B2C web platform or a hardware startup or a restaurant, for whatever it is. So you really keep in mind what makes sense for you. And keeping in mind what makes sense for you as a top metric, what you want to achieve, also keep in mind that no matter which metric you're looking at as the one that you try to follow for growth, there's always like something that no matter how much you put into the bucket, more users, more impressions, whatever it is, you lose people on the way. Your startup is host. It's churning away customers. You're losing customers. You got one to your site, but he looked at it, signed up, and never used it again. So you have to watch that too. Where am I winning customers, but where am I losing customers? And try to understand why. Because if you lose at this high rate customers, the winning rate has to be even higher that you can grow. All right? It's a lot about retention and engagement. And also, when we talk about measurement, is once you have that measure, the size of that measure, right? When you experiment with growth drivers and different channels, your aim is to move the needle. So once you have a measure, you have like a needle on kind of a measurement, what the aim is with growth hacking, you want to try that moving. If something helps, but just so tiny, it will not yield. And it also depends, if you just launched, adding 1,000 customers in a week is awesome. It's great. Yeah. But if you already have like 100,000 users, adding 100 customers a week is lousy compared to 1,000 customers a week. So what moves the needle also depends on where you are. And you also have to look for the strategies in the right time, what can push this further on. Mindset number 3, focus, focus, focus. There is a lot of misconception that people use the word marketing for. When they say marketing, they think of corporate marketing. And what do I mean with corporate marketing? Corporate marketing is like, I'm building a brand, I'm present here, 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 here. I'm bombarding my consumers because I have the money with all sides for marketing, right? This is not startup traction building. You cannot afford to do the same things as they do. When we talk about marketing, we actually mean every traction building measure. We don't mean the metric, and here comes the metric thing. We don't mean the metric which is what I call the vanity metric. All right. So what is the vanity metric? Hey, there has been an article about my startup in a tech blog. Yeah, we're awesome. Yeah, we had 100 likes more on Facebook. Yeah, we're awesome. So there are situations where that article on TechCrunch or any other medium really helps you. It can spike something. It depends on who user groups are, right? So if user groups are developers, are startup other guys, like who are like the first adopters, it's great. But if your user group are like 40, 50 plus year old people who are looking for a stable financial investment, it wouldn't not even do a dimp on the needle. Zero. Unless you're lucky and one of the other big media reads TechCrunch and picks it up, but you can't predict that. It can happen sometimes, happens. But what I'm saying is, don't fall trap of the vanity metrics, and it happens a lot. I spoke at a conference. Yeah, I've been featured. Yeah, we have 400 more Facebook likes. Yeah. If they don't bring growth, ultimately, they're meaningless. Of course, there's the indirect way, right? 500 more likes on Facebook means your potential audience is 500 plus 500 people. That means in the future, you can, when you create content, reach more people there, and then over time get them customers. But for now, let's ignore this effect. For now, unless it's a really strategy for you. So ignore the vanity metrics, and focus on those things that really help you with traction building. And what traction building is also not, it's not doing everything. And that's something also seen in a lot of startups, that we have to have a Facebook page, we have to be on Reddit, we have to be on Twitter, we have to be on YouTube, we have to have our own blog, we have to do an online campaign with SEM, we have to do SEO, we have to do... You can't. It's impossible as a startup that you do all of it. It's just zero possibility. You have lack of resources all the time anyway. It's impossible. So you really should find the one channel, maybe the two, that really work for you, and focus on them. Yes?
How do you find them if you don't try them?
Exactly. You need, we go into... So, I fully agree. Experiment. And the best way is doing it as early as possible, making small bets, experiments. It's a 250 euros you spend on Google AdWords, for example, if you say you want to test that channel, and see what it weeks. And you do it weekly, bi-weekly, or in 2 weeks or in 3 weeks, and plan, okay, these 2 weeks I'm going to use to test this channel, these 2 weeks I'm going to use to test, or sometimes you need longer, this channel, these 2 weeks I'm going to use channel, and then you have to think, how can I design the experiment in the smallest possible way that it still yields results for me? We will talk about it on the channel level, what you can do somewhere, but yes, you have to experiment, totally. That's the whole point of the whole talk, you have to be open and try and try and try. And so don't do everything, it's a mistake. It's always a mistake. You will not have resources, and if you say, well, but there are so many free channels out there, right? Where I don't have to spend money. There is no such thing as a free channel. Every channel needs at least investment of your time. And this is something you sometimes have even less than money, because you have so many things to do. Right? So no free channel, focus on the ones that work. So we had the right mindset. Now we come to the fundamentals for channels in general. What you need to do, and I don't know why a lot of people don't do it explicitly. It's the best thing, you sit down with your team and write this down. You have to understand your customers. Who are they? What's the most common trend of our, especially if you're pre-product market fit, assumed ideal customer? What would they look like? I'm not talking about demographics. It could be traits that are interest-based. But try to find out what it is. If it's businesses, which kind of businesses? Is it SMEs? Is it big companies among SMEs? Or is it any group that is specifically well suited for you? Try to understand who is my ideal customer and write it down. And have something where people say, hey, do we agree on this? Yes or no? Yes. And then understand their world. So who is your ideal customer and where do they spend their time? Which other products that are maybe not competitors but substitutes to what you do are they using? Which other competitors are trying to get to them as well, crowding out the channel space? Which other services and products they use? Where are they? Which channels they do? How can I reach them? It's a very basic thing, but it's something I rarely see if I ask a startup, hey, have you have any a customer profile? No. Why not? It will help you. It will change over time. When you're looking for a product market fit, that might change over time, but you have to start with one hypothesis or one thing that you learned so far and try to aim for that. So that's the first thing you have to do. Second bit, when we talk about metrics, all right? And this is now a question for you guys, because the setting right metrics is really depends on your startup, it should be yours, not ours, on your startup at its current stage. For example, if you are a B2B software service startup, what would be a good acquisition metric? I'm not saying forget right and wrong, I just want to hear your opinions. If you sell to businesses software as a service, a cloud service, what's a good acquisition metric?
Number of trials.
All right, could be.
Calls.
Could be. Could be. Okay. What would be like an engagement / retention metric?
Active users.
Okay.
Sign-ups after trial.
Okay. Maybe. Yeah. What would be like the bottom line thing that you're looking for? Really, ultimately, the thing that you want to drive?
Conversion rate.
Really? Is it?
The value of the customer. Long.
No, conversion rate is a percentage. That's why it's tricky, because if you have like 2 people coming on your page in a month and you have 100% conversion rate, you sign up 2 customers. Like 100% conversion rate, awesome, but what does it mean? What could it be? Revenue. Usually revenue is actually a very good metric for B2B software service startups. Look, I'm not saying there's right and wrong. There's like certain things that certain categories tend to do, and it makes sense, but you just have to be aware of what it means for you. Let's go for a mobile app. What's the acquisition metric?
Number of new users a day, a week.
Is it users? Downloads, okay.
Downloads.
Okay. What's an engagement metric?
Active users.
What is an active user?
Active user is the one, it's defined by Google or iOS, but it's the one who used the app yesterday or
Or 2 minutes a day.
So, well, it depends. If you use existing analytics tool and click on their active user thing, of course they have some predefined things, right? And usually if you look at a month-on-month basis, the user was active in 1 month. However, you could define it very differently for yourself. You could say, an active user is a person that uses my app at least once a week. You could say that. There's totally fine with that, all right? And what would be your bottom line? Maybe.
Revenue.
Well, so it's a tricky question, right? If you have an app that has a premium, free and premium model, then it might be revenue.
How many users he's bringing? I mean, the user who is using it, how many users he's
Oh, okay. It's important point, but we come to that. That's virality. It's a simple exercise metric. So we don't have to go through all this. For a search engine, for example, it could be number of searches per month. Maybe it has nothing to do with users. Could be. It's very, seen search engine is doing that. For a hardware startup, it's units sold in a month. So what I'm saying is you have to understand what is relevant for you, which stage. Well, how do you measure these things? So fundamental 3. Again, difference between pre-product market fit and post-product market fit. What does the right channel look like? Okay. So on a pre-product market fit, well, you're experimenting, right? You wanna first understand which ones work for you, and second, you want to build initial traction. That's the thing. You want to get the wagon going, right? So if you've experimented with at least a few, you probably want to go for that one at the beginning, increasing your efforts, that in relation to the others creates the most acquisitions for you. So it's in relative the best one. It's not in general the best one, all right? Second, again, you want to go for one that has the potential to move the needle. All right. So just a very bad example though. If you have the option of doing sales and you have like a two-man founder team or four women guys team, all right, and you have the option of sales, and you have the option you try to generate inbound traffic by doing content marketing on relevant pages that your customers read. All right, and you experiment with sales. And you see, okay, it's really, really difficult for us to do, and it's a very long sales cycle to get there, and we have to do a lot of calls to do this, right? Moving the needle, it's a stupid example, please excuse myself, reality doesn't look that way usually, because the other comparison is you do content marketing and suddenly people come do inbounds, and once they do inbounds, you call them up, and it's easier to sell them. You don't have to educate them. Because the one mistake you did in the first one is you didn't qualify right. You didn't know who to qualify, right? So when you see that, you most likely more would go to the content marketing part because what you get is qualified leads, and the sales cycle of that is, let's assume, 4 weeks, whereas when you just cold call people, your sales cycle is 6 months. It's an unrealistic example, but I'm just saying, you would go for the second part, the content marketing, because the sales cycle is shorter, it has more potential to move the needle, because you can do more of these calls that are inbound instead of outbound. And of course, you want to look for things that are affordable and executable. That's a very tricky one, you know, because sometimes you have to invest energy into certain channels to understand how they work, and it needs time. Sometimes it's really worth the time, right? But you know, if I say, you know, simple, it depends on your what I call unit economics. For example, if you are in a phase where you don't charge money and you're all about, I want to have a lot of users because I want to become the next social network, right? But every user doesn't generate any revenue for you. The amount per user you can spend, technically, is much lower. Whereas if you're an e-commerce startup and you're every user you're getting on, or every visitor you get on a web page, you know, 10% you convert into a paying customer, then you have like a certain lifetime value revenue to that user. That's like the cap for what you can spend to generate users. In other words, an expensive channel, for example, if you were in an industry where keywords buying is expensive to get AdWords, you can afford to do so if you have unit economics, where every time after the conversion you still earn something. But you know, and it's, even though it's expensive, it's still for you affordable because the unit economics allow it. Whereas if you don't have any unit economics per user yet, because you're betting on monetize later over advertisement, which you know, it's a tricky thing to do. It's difficult to pull on search engine marketing, right? The difference if you achieve product market fit. What you want to do is you want to really focus on those channels. Until then, you hope they've tried multiple ones. Maybe they're like results of indicating different channels work well, where you can acquire customers at a lower cost than any other channel for yourself. Number two is, and they're either together or alternatively, you focus on those channels where you can acquire customers better than your competition. And there are two things possible for that. A, you for somehow you know and understand how to use the channel better. In some channels it's unlikely. B, and it's more likely, you have stronger unit economics than your competitor. For example, you sell goods and your margin is higher than your competitor's margin, which means if you use, again, search engine marketing, you can outbid your competitors for keywords. You're allowed to that, you don't care. You know what I mean? You can make it under the top 3 ranked ones, because if you're not there, it doesn't mean anything anyway. But it can be allowed. So if you're better than competitors, or, as I said, it really should suit your unit economics, by then you should have some. And now you're looking for things that are repeatable and scalable. You want to really here try to create an engine after you have product market fit. Before, not necessarily. Good. So when I said draw here, I wanted to actually draw on the flip chart, but it's gone. So I tried to explain it with hands. I'm the company, right? So you're a startup, it's me. I have here customers, these guys. And the channel is a way to reach them, right? They're direct channels. I can use platforms such as social media channels. I can use like platforms such as the App Store. I can use other companies to reach them, no matter if they're affiliate or if they're, you know, if I pay to do them or if I piggyback on them. So a channel is always something that you reach here to that customer, right? That's what I do. But another thing is everything that a customer can do to reach other customers for you. That's where we talk about virality. He shares something for you. He invites people. He sends you the link to join on Dropbox because he wants 250 more megabytes extra. You know, so his link is here. And what you have to think of is, on the one hand, on this side of the spectrum, also here, how you can connect with others. And what you also have to think of, what it means here on that side, what do I have to put in to get these channels going. So this is search engine marketing. I need such a budget. Maybe different. This is search engine optimization. I have really good guys who can do that. Maybe that's budget. Right, so just to get I know it's difficult if I can't draw it, but I hope that there would be a drawing board here. Right, so that's the general structure of each, how you should think in channels. Then what you should do in general when you work with channels is you really need to understand the channel mechanics. Each channel works differently. We'll go from channels to examples later on. you should understand and check what peers are doing, what competitors are doing, and what people in your industry are doing to see, and the one, what can you learn from them? Because maybe some of them are doing certain things very well. On the other hand, maybe you identify opportunities of channels that they don't use yet, but you think that might be a good one. That's when we go to seeking out underutilized channels. What are underutilized channels? It will depend on your product, on your customer segment. So either ones that your competition is not betting on, or ones that just emerged newly. So a few years ago, Reddit wasn't really a channel. Now it's a really strong one for a lot of people. Product Hunt didn't even exist 2 years ago. Now it's becoming for startups a really big channel to reach traction, right? And of course, always retest and reevaluate channels. Right? Sometimes you don't have to retest because you're working with them anyway, but then what are my click-through rates, for example, here today, what have they been 6 months ago? Staying same, going up, going down. And that's important. Again, instead of focusing and doing everything, double down on the winners. Those channels that work best for you. Maybe it's just one channel that works really well for you. That's enough. Double down on it instead of trying to do everything. And keep in mind, channels have inherently a different logic. So there are like certain channels that are demand harvesting. What they mean with that, people already have a purchase intention, all right, and you just funnel them to your page that they buy from you, your product. The other one is demand generating. You try to actually make people aware, hey, this is the product you need, right? So demand harvesting are actually very few channels out there. So on the top of my mind, the one I would categorize as demand harvesting is basically Google. Where can I get cheap MP3 player? Amazon Kindle cheaper, or whatever it is. I'm putting my purchase intent there, right? And plops up, either because organic, search engine optimized, or search engine marketing. Hey, here, it is demand. Otherwise, there are very few. YouTube, he might search for something and find it there, but otherwise it's very difficult to find demand harvesting channels. And of course, your shop is a demand harvesting channel, right? The customer that walks in, you can bet at least his intent to buy something. Maybe he, doesn't do it, but he wants to. And demand generation is if you build up the whole level, for example, social ads on Facebook. Hey, your friend liked this, you can now order food from home or whatever it is. All right, so that's what you're trying to do long term. And that's also, here basically outlines demand harvesting is channels of customer intent, where you kind of guess it or can know it. And the other ones are where actually have to, while the user is doing something, interrupt them. When there is a sudden interruption on a website where you want to visit the content. A video on YouTube is an interruption when you want to watch a video, right? The sponsored ad on Facebook that you hate to see is an interruption. But it's different logics behind it. Good. So, after looking myself, because I was interested in, what is out there, how can we categorize channels? Is it enough to have online, offline? Is it within online have enough to have 3 categories? Is that like something that I'm missing out? I found, after having him as a speaker at the Pioneers Festival, Justin Morris, read his book, and it's really awesome. I can really recommend it to every one of you in general, but specifically for one thing, because he actually, what they did with his co-authors, they went out to a lot of successful entrepreneurs out there and asked and interviewed them, made case studies, tried to understand, and they've been entrepreneurs themselves, how they did things. And by that, they kind of categorized, and I think it's a good categorization, 19 different channels. Right? 19. Think of that. And we don't talk about Facebook as one channel. Facebook is part here of social and display ads. All right? So what I mean is this category is, on the one hand, exhaustive. It's a good categorization because you don't miss anything. On the other hand, it doesn't pinpoint every single, channel in one category. What you need to understand is the category, and because usually they share something. Yes.
I'm sorry, who's the written one?
Justin Morris and Gabriel Weinberg. So Justin Morris was actually on stage at Pioneers. Not sure if his video is up. Look it up on YouTube. Was a good talk. I don't know if it's online. So I can definitely recommend it. Traction, the startup guide to getting customers. So we will go just basically before we go into a discussion together to the channels and see one example of what it meant, right? So viral marketing. What is viral marketing? When we remember my hand-drawn structure of your company, your user, and other users, Viral marketing is everything where your users acquiring other users for you. All right? And there are a few things to understand about that. So, one, in general, there are some products that are more inherently viral than others. So Facebook, WhatsApp, Skype, LinkedIn, all kind of these pattern models are inherently viral. Why? Skype isn't worth anything for you unless your contacts have it. WhatsApp isn't worth anything for you unless your contacts have it. So inherently means I, as a user, have more value of the product if my friends have it too, inherently. And they have more value if their friends have it too, right? Number one. Number two is, and I don't want to go too much into detail because when we talk, it's a lot of stuff I know. I'm really sorry for bombarding you with information, but I want to have a sort of discussion. Number two is the so-called like viral coefficient. The viral coefficient is about how many invites does one user send out, right? And how many multiplied by how many of these invites really convert to users. And you can break down the conversion rate even longer. How many land on my page, how many clicks, but just keep it simple. How many invites am I sending out and how many of those invites are converted? So, if I send out now 10 invites, and from these 10 invites, 50% really become users, I have a viral coefficient of 0.5. Make sense?
Could you repeat that, please?
If I have, no, sorry, let's do it otherwise. It's wrong. If I send out 10, let's make it easier. If I send out 10 invitations, and of those people accepting is 1. 1 is accepting, so I have a conversion of 0.1. My viral coefficient becomes 1. Why? Because one user brought me 1 user. If I would send out 10 invites, I made a calculation mistake there because I want to do the example otherwise round. If I send out now 10 invites, and from these 10, what I mean is what an average user does. And from these, I have like 5 people converting, my viral coefficient is 5, which means, just think about it, and that's very, very rarely for any product happening. No, it means that every 1 user that you acquire brings you 5 more. That you don't think of this as it never happened. Like unless you're Facebook, it doesn't happen. Doesn't happen. So what usually, and everything that is above 1 means you're growing exponentially. Why? Because for every user that you acquire, he gets more users for you. It's an exponential function behind it, right? So still, what people kind of say is that a viral coefficient, if you can achieve it, and some products just won't work. I mean, like for some products, it's so difficult that people say, I viral it. If you achieve a viral coefficient of 0.5, so if you get half a user, for every user that you get, it's already great. It's really great. You can do a lot of growth with that. All right? But, as I said, some products are more inherent and some aren't. And now there's this, example that all of you probably know. Because who is a Dropbox user here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people, and the other 3 are lying. No, I'm just kidding. And so you know the story. They have, you have 2 gigabytes free on Dropbox. Send invites to your friend. Per every friend, you get X megabyte extra. Right? You're like, cool. I have now an incentive to send it out to and invite all my people. And because they get something too. So it's value adding. Take an incentive. It's a very, very classic, well-made story. Especially after what they first found out while they were building on the product. They tried to get users on their platform over search engine marketing by getting AdWords, right? Buying that. And they figured out, because they have this, I think, $9.99 per month model, they figured out that acquiring 1 paid user over, if I do Google AdWords, will cost them $250 or something, right? $239, I don't know. It's a well often quoted one. It just didn't work out for their unit economics. All right, so out of this, oh damn it, that's not going to work. They tried to think of which other channels can we use, and then they actually saw that a lot of people were already recommending Dropbox. And then they said, okay, we have to really push this. You really have to push this, and then they invented this variety mechanics behind it. However, I don't think that would work for every service though. So if you have a product or a service that people not already recommend in some way, it's not going to work.
I think it works because everyone is using email or is using storing files somewhere. It's mass need.
It depends.
That is common. It's very common everywhere.
Yeah, well, I mean, it worked for a lot of Facebook games, Candy Crush, and that is also very, very well. So, like, it depends. There are some products where it might work better and some others wouldn't, right? Good. Number 2, PR, classical. This is what a lot of startups try to invest a lot of time in at the beginning, or be kind of covered by classical media. Media is quite difficult to get. Don't want to go too much into detail here, but one company that did it extremely well, and back in the days when they were very young, was Virgin. They really managed to be completely, always covered by the media all the time. The way they launched products, the way they built journalist relationships, the way they pushed forward, the way their founder positioned themselves as a thought leader on many, many areas, really get a lot of PR. But there's also something that you call unconventional PR. So PR is when you get reported by. Unconventional PR is something that Hipmunk did. Hipmunk sent his first users, like the first few hundred or something, the founder sent them a handwritten note, like thanking them to be a Hipmunk user, and sent them this like Hipmunk big sticker that you could put on your travel bag. All right, and people were like, yeah, I have this, and they were taking pictures of it and sharing it, and at some point someone picked this even up. Unconventional PR could also be like a so-called PR stunt. All right, so I mean, Virgin is also a good example. Richard Branson doing all kind of extreme stuff just to be in the media was definitely all the time PR stunts. Right? Like Red Bull letting a guy jumping down from the stratosphere was a PR stunt. They don't need to get the media to report about it. They're like, hey, I want to report about this. Right? But PR stunts on unconventional PR is also about like extreme customer service and these handwritten notes and people saying, wow, that's such a good brand. They spread a lot of word of mouth for you. Right? Oh, that was wrong. So ignore Busuu here. That's search engine marketing now. Made a mistake. Busuu is actually, why I took this example, a company now based in London but founded by Austrians. They are the largest online language learning platform there is. I think over 60 million users, maybe more, I don't know the actual stats. And for them, search engine marketing works extremely well. It's a premium model. You can start free courses learning a language and then you can sign up to the premium one. And for them, it turned out that actually this is really like a machinery that they can pump in, because from how the landscape for the keywords is occupied by other language learning institutions and things that try to attract customers is relatively low compared to other fields. Relatively, it's still high, but for them, it's still enough that their unit economics are still higher. So every time when they generate traffic there, a certain percentage converts to paid users and it pays off. So it's a search engine marketing machinery. Social and display ads. So display ads would be the old banner stuff. But technically, if you see like an ad here, a promoted post on Facebook, it's a social ad as well. All right? It's the same category. And one, I don't know, Dollar Shave Club, who knows them? So they did it really well. It's like a recurring model for razors. Subscription model, thank you. Subscription model for relatively low-cost razors. And besides having an awesome, amazing video that I recommend everyone to watch, it's a really kick-ass video they did. It's amazing. What they did is they really used, like, especially Facebook, not only very well, to be promoted and present in their target of social ads. For them, it worked extremely well. So offline ads, you wouldn't believe it, but there are also startups or like tech companies doing offline ads, really advertising in newspaper or big somewhere things. And one company that actually did this significantly was Salesforce. It made sense for them, right? They want to reach like all these Fortune 500 companies to the startups, so they had a really big range of companies they can reach, and they want to get to the decision makers. So they really kind of pushed forward in being present in a lot of magazines and newspapers that these people read. So for them it worked well, but it depends on your product. SEO, there are of course so many more examples to mention, so search engine optimization, but one I want to mention because number one, it's an Austrian startup which was acquired by Page One, the Yellow Pages of France. But number two, it demonstrates how a channel can change. So back in the days before or just recently after it got acquired or just before, for One2People, which is a person search engine, right? So you go there, you type in a person's name, and you get aggregated data from Facebook profile, pictures, you know. So a more specialized Google, if you want to say so, all right? Back in the days, SEO was awesome, all right? For them, it provided really being always ranked, if you look for a person in specific market, among the top 5. Don't want to go into details, but they really figured out, found a way how to be, you know, create content on demand and be listed always there if you look for a person. However, at some point, Google, you know, well, in general, changed a bit of the details of the algorithm, and secondly, you know, was more skeptical towards companies doing like this aggregated search of the search thing, and kind of really changed things that suddenly, even if they did the same things and they did the things right, the improvements of it sank extremely. So what worked for one company 2 years afterwards didn't work. What was the prime? No, let me rephrase. What was the prime channel 2 years before or 3 years before? In 3 years, didn't work anymore. It can happen. Content marketing. Who knows OkCupid? It's one of the biggest dating. I know it. No, so it's one of the biggest dating platforms out there. But besides that, the reason why you might know it is they did some really good content marketing by providing stats about, you know, what do men like in women, which kind of types of men like, which kind of women attractive. They provided these graphs and stats based off their data that they have as a dating platform, which is kind of interesting for everyone. You know, you always want to, you know, what's the distribution curve of how men find women attractive and otherwise, right? It's interesting content that they could be able to produce uniquely because they had the data, made really nice infographics out of it, pushed it really hard, and generated a lot of traffic, and they're still doing it very well. Email marketing, I think the master of email marketing was Groupon. So email marketing isn't really extremely unless you get email lists from somewhere, but if you get the emails from your users, it isn't extremely well qualified to get new people as a first touching point. But it's extremely well if you do it to, you know, convert users. And Groupon, I mean, you probably tried it at some point, you have to enter your email address there. There's no way you can use the site without having your email address there. And when you do that mistake, bam, you're in the loop. You're getting bombarded constantly. But it's somehow they figured out how to tweak it. It really worked extremely well for them, at least for some time. I'm not sure how well it's working now. Then another thing is engineering as marketing. You create something out of tech that people find so useful that because of that, they come to you. There are two things. HubSpot, they're doing like a channel aggregation for you to show you kind of what you can improve in your marketing, basically. They created a widget tool that can show you what you do wrong, where you suck. All right? So I'm a marketer, can go there, and it tells me this is the areas you suck. And coincidentally, it's a tool that will help me to improve things. So that was really, really great because you're like, I want to know what I do wrong. You know, you go there, tool, and that really spread the word of mouth in the community. And second is engineering as marketing is when you build integrations to existing systems. So, like, think of someone has an API, use that API, by that creating for use that they have an additional benefit of using your product. That's also use engineering resources kind of to get new users. Targeting blogs, you really kind of try to get to bloggers. Mint, they did extremely well. They're like a financial services startup that kind of show you what to do with your personal incomes and bank account and where you have the expenses. Before they launched, they really targeted certain blogs, like actively, that are reaching to those who are more financial savvy or like more interested in that, and made deals with them, like kind of paid or, you know, to have their banner there or logo there, or, you know, arrange with them to write over them. And before they launched and when they launched, within like a very short time, I think they achieved like 10,000 registrations, like in few days. Or actually it was in 10,000 signups before they launched, not exactly sure. They did extremely well. Someone else who does it very well, I put it there because it's also like a company founded by an Austrian guy, the other one is American, they're based in Silicon Valley. Buffer, it's a tool that allows you to share on specific networks on a pre-recorded time. So I say share this content on Twitter at 10 o'clock, this on Facebook at 12, and then again on Twitter at 12, shares it. And they really, really did this extremely well. Look at their own blog and where their founders actually are represented in blogs of others. You won't believe it. It's amazing. They did a really good job. They're really betting on this heavily. Business development. Business development. So sales would be, I talk to you, you get my product, I get your money. Business development would be, I talk to you, you get a benefit from me as a company, and I get a benefit from you as a company. But we don't exchange money, right? Very simplified. Kayak did this great. You know, it's one of the biggest like flight and hotel price comparison machines, and acquired so many others. It's, even though if you don't know that it's Kayak, it's most likely behind it. What they really kicked them off was like a very early deal with AOL in the very beginnings, where AOL promoted them. They struck a deal, you know, that kind of was supposed to help both, but that really skyrocketed Kayak. It was really like best bet they could do. Sales, classic. You pick up the phone, you try to, you know, really get the guy convincing. I think Box does a really good job. They're always also on how to optimize it, really pushing him a really big sales force and really going to very, very deep on how to optimize this. Yeah, and then at some point, I ran out of logos, so you have to suffice with the names. Affiliate programs, which means you pay someone else to market it for you, right? Someone who did it extremely well is Amazon. And the benefit of affiliate programs is, if I put a display ad somewhere and I pay money for it, right, but it doesn't bring me any inbounds, it doesn't bring me any clicks or any conversions, I have the risk of, you know, having money wasted, basically. The affiliate marketing is, we two agree that I say, if you sell my product, then you get a commission. Or, you know, if you bring me clicks, or if you bring me this action, it could be anything, right, then you get something. And the big benefit is, suddenly, depending on your agreement, of course, there's a risk change. So he is now the risk that he doesn't earn anything if it doesn't bring me. And I only pay for every time I really got something. Make sense? It doesn't work for all business models though. That's usually for transaction-based business models. Game also work heavily with this as well. Using existing platforms. One company probably everyone knows, Evernote. One, at least everyone in Austria knows in the startup company. So Evernote, the whole prime strategy was being ready on every app store that is available as soon as it launched. The first on every single app store in their category at all. Why? Because they betted on a platform growing big, and being the first on existing platforms helps you to grow big. So it's very difficult these days now at this big, again, channel changes to do the standard Evernote did. The same with Runtastic. Runtastic, I don't know if anyone knows it, any chance? Yeah. So they're like, you know, one of the most successful startups in Austria. They have like over 100 million app downloads. More or less, I don't know, quite a lot. And when they do like fitness tracking, and they started like 5.5 years ago, 5.5 almost now. And back in the days, that was like, you know, there were a few competitors, but it was the really right time to dig, you know, being in the app store and growing with those app stores. And what they did well is, they had actually a better product than the competitors. And that was enough in that early days to gain, well, not enough, there's some stuff, but you know, overgeneralizing here as usual with all the startups. But that really pulled them up amazingly, being a product leader in a growing market and betting now, of course, on every platform being available. So you can use those too. And of course, existing platforms would also be, if you find a way to leverage Facebook, for example, like Zynga did, or Farmwell, and all the stuff you need to send out invites or Facebook or sending out for you. Trade shows, you go to like fairs, trade shows, and to, you know, try to get customers there or partners there. One good example is SlidePad. They do brakes for bicycles, right? Innovative brakes, and they went to one trade show and like struck a partnership with, I don't know the company's bike producer, and that helped them to instantly be one of the producers for their bikes, right? So that's something that, if it works, it can open you a lot of opportunities. It doesn't mean it works for all startups. Offline events like this one, you could host one, invite your users, and then have it. As far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong, Meetup is a platform where you can host meetups, organize themselves meetups and offline events first to get it promoted as a platform. That's what I've heard. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it was that way. So you can organize meetups. You have a developer tool, do a meetup for developers and tell them what their recent trends are. You are a marketer, I'm not sure. You know, do it in events, use meetup to make for marketers, kind of get traction there. Speaking engagements. So besides organizing your event, means being part of someone else's event, like the Pioneers Festival or TechCrunch and Scrap or others. Every time when you're on stage and speak to someone, like I do now, there are a few people that will at least remember you. And maybe some, if I'm not a startup now, I'm not saying something, but if I promote, like, if you use the speaking event and promote my company, it might turn to a lot of users, partners, customers, and spread the word, especially if it's recorded right now, other people watch it. So people underutilize this channel. It takes time to build up because you build credibility in a space first. Usually, the people consider you, but think about that way. It depends on which event it is. You don't have to aim for the top events at first. Aim for smaller events. Usually, event organizers are looking to fill spots and get speakers, and so something you can build up. And most they did actually really well, humping from every speaking opportunity, CEO. Community building, Wikipedia. What do I have to tell more? You create a community that kind of increases itself. You invest a lot of the community. You allow the community to communicate with each other, interact with each other, right? That's really something you can do. Good. That was a lot of information. I know. I will share the slides with you, and hopefully they will be posted then on the Spot Facebook page. Let's hope. Right? Yes. We can post the slides on the Spot Facebook page. We can tweet it out too, so we're present on multiple channels. On SlideShare, you can have it. But what I want to have now with you guys is actually like a discussion, and there are some questions already here. You can maybe vote up for questions or ask questions here as well, or ask me. I will just do a few questions, and then I want to actually have a discussion. I want to learn from you guys. What are your experiences? Which channels? What worked for you? Why did it work? How to go for it? Good. So the first question is, what do you think about content marketing for startup, e.g. blog? How long does it take to attract right customers? It depends. I mean, that's the whole lesson of this, I hope, the talk. It really depends. It depends on who your users are, ideal users are, and what it takes to create content that is relevant for them. And there are like two, different things. There's like, you build kind of credibility and expertise in one space that interests them, and share a lot about it. For example, the buffer guys, right? They not only write about how to use social media, they write a lot about productivity tools, productivity hacks, lifestyle, simplicity. Actually, one of the founders, Leo, he sold all of his stuff, just put a backpack with limited amounts of items in it, and not acquiring more. Every time he buys something new, like a shirt, he has to get rid of one. He's a very simplistic lifestyle kind of follower, and he writes about this, and what I learned about this, and he created actually, in this case, a huge, relatively big readership, who happens to be, because they're like him, digital nomads, happens to be also the ones that use Buffer. So if you can find either in your space directly or related to something where you can share your thoughts and build credible content that will help you, it takes time though. This is not a short-term thing. It takes time to do it, and you have to consistently. Can you give an example of product service that didn't work for Facebook, but worked well elsewhere? Product service that didn't work. Is anyone who has the question in the room?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was basically that the idea is that someone tried Facebook and said, okay, well, this isn't going too well. And then they tried, cold calling or emailing, and all of a sudden, like, an explosion of customers.
Well, yeah, well, the all of a sudden explosion of customers is, of course, one thing, but what does work mean? Work is how well does it work compared to other alternatives? And I think, actually, there are a lot of startups that start recently where it doesn't work that well like other alternatives do, because it's such an overcrowded channel. For example, I can share that. So with Hitbox, we have like Facebook presence. When I was there, let's say, had, and still have, and pushing it, and sharing content there, and sharing even content from the content producers, the streamers, when there was a special team in our things, right? So it was like, all right, it's going. But the question is, how much traction did it bring us? How much real uses, like moving needle-wise, bring us? Comparably, very little. It was more of a must-have, a stretch of promoting our content and our content producers, giving them enough channel, more or less. But it wasn't like moving a needle. wasn't really bringing. Compared to what really brought a lot of things is we started to organize our own esports tournaments. Because like the big tournaments, they're like electronic sports, people compete in video games professionally. The sponsor teams, a lot of people watch this. So it was like, we understood the business development of broadcasting the bigger tournaments takes a while. You can't do it like, hey, I'm here, new platform, please let us broadcast, right? What we did is we created our own online tournaments, tested in one game first, in Dota 2, that went extremely well, and that really suddenly moved the needle, because not only a lot of people watched that event, but also it was kind of reported in different gaming sites and these league stats and everyone, it reached a lot of people. And then we scaled this up in the sense of doing it more for more and more different games. So we started with Dota 2, League of Legends came, Counter-Strike came, Hearthstone came. I think they're now working on other games as well, meanwhile, I don't know. So compared to what Facebook did for us in bringing users, compared to the events. So, I mean, was it that not a single user came? No, it's not true. Of course some came. And there were like some posts that went extremely well, usually the ones where you could win something as a gamer, or like were relevant for you in your gaming community. But compared to what, and I would say most of them, let's ask the opposite question. Which startup do you know, like maybe in the younger phase, not like Zynga and the old ones, where Facebook works extremely well as a channel? And then which one? Are we talking about virality, that you have the sharing integrated, or are we talking about social ads or promoted posts?
I guess both. But yeah, I wanted to hear that example that it didn't move that needle.
Yeah, compared to
the event which generated a
yeah,
lot of
but that's what it's about, So if you are in a content environment like Hitbox was, you need to be present in certain other minds as well, just to be cross-promoting content for your content producers. But if you need to choose on where to bet on traction, would you do it? Just because you think I have to do it? If it's the best option, sure. But do you know how other options perform compared to that? Have you tried, I don't know, Instagram, for example? It's surprising, but for some it works really well, some industries. Tried Reddit? Like, we're only talking about like one fraction, right? We're talking about being still in the same category when we talk about social networks of here. We're not even talking about all the other stuff. You know what I mean? So how do you know it's the best working channel? Does it move the needle? I don't know in your case.
It's just a general question.
Well, like every other company, here, except for this one, here, had one channel that worked obviously much better for them than on Facebook, because that was the one that is strongly betted on. Make sense?
Yeah.
Again, it's like it's a certain bias. We all have it. I have it too. To be honest, like back in the days before I joined Hitbox, I wasn't really using much Reddit. But like the gaming community is very, very active on Reddit. You guys like, okay, I have to understand the channel mechanics better and what can we do to, things. And then there's so many details about it. But before that, I was like, oh yeah, from time to time I go to Reddit. More startup related stuff, but never thought of it as like a marketing channel, attraction channel. I was biased too. Good. Can you give some example for experiments? Yes. Example number one, you buy 250 euros, 300 euros, 200 euros ads. Does it work? Here, and try social search engine marketing. I'm not saying you should try exactly, but that's a very easy to run experiment. Why? Because you have the analytics connected. You can see immediately calculated by them the click-through rates, and it tells you which keywords are performing, which not. It's a very easy to do experiment. Experiment number two, you create 2, 3, or 4 at max different Facebook posts that can be promoted and try to promote them. And before that, set what your ideal target group is. And with ideal target group, it's not necessarily someone who has an interest in specifically area where you are. If you can find a correlation of another group that is interested or might be highly interested in what you are, target them. Do 4 different posts, invest €50 in each, €70, more or less. Keep the target group more concise and see performance. You can directly see it on Facebook. Option number 3, we talk still about experiments. Public relations. So, like in public relations, it's really difficult to get saying someone writes about you, all right? But what you can do instead of what people trying to, I want to get on TechCrunch, I want to get here, is like go for smaller blogs, all right, that might have a certain percentage of people that's relevant to your target group, and try to get there first. And I'm not talking about, hey, we are cool, write about us, but it's more about, hey, I read your blog often, I really like what you write, and your last article was really cool. Have you ever considered writing about this and this? Thank you, cheers, you're a fan. This was a tip by Neil Patel, actually. Second, he writes another one, saying, hey, awesome, read your new article, it's great, you wrote about X, Y, and Z. I'm wondering why you didn't write about, A, B, and C. By the way, like, if you need help, I can fill you a lot of information on that, because I think your readers will love it. And really, for me, no problem at all. I really love what you do. I can even write the blog for you. You can kind of work on it and choosing a few ones to get there and be present, because usually there's a certain dynamics involved. At least once you have the entry barrier of PR, so 2 things happen. One, very often, bigger media picks out from blogs, and the blogs sometimes pick out from smaller blogs. Not all the time, true, but like it happens more often than you think that journalists get inspired by other journalists. 2 is, it is a way for you to build up long way credibility somewhere. And the reason why I'm tested is, well, pick one blog. It's like an email a week or 2 emails a week. Write to that guy. Do it on the site and see if it works. Pick 3 blogs and do it. 4 that are relevant. If no one actually kind of is ever interested in what you have to say, right, next. But it's an experiment. Content marketing. Well, you can experiment here by creating your own blog and what is relevant, but the time frame for the experiment might have to be a bit longer. You can't just have one blog post and see, yes, it's working, yes or no. You need a few more that are relevant for your target audience, cross-promote them on the other channels, and then try to see if it's evaluated. But that's something you can do easily. But yeah, the important thing is understand what content should it be, and do I produce myself? Do I have maybe someone who writes it for me? It's still my corporate blog, whatever it is. What else? Well, sales. Create a spreadsheet, find leads, try to qualify them, but you can by already ideal customer or not. Pick up the phone, call them, try to get to the right person. In that conversation, try to qualify them / sell them. Do this like picking up a week, call 10 a day, 30 a day. Do this for a week. You have like a big enough sample to know, at least, in feeling, is that a suitable channel for me, yes or no? I mean, not in the sense of closing, but if you call 100 people, talk to them and try to sell to them, or try to have a meeting, and 99 say, whatever, I don't understand what you're doing, I don't need this, then you either have like a problem with your product anyway, or it's a channel that's not going to work, because you need to make inbound leads that kind of self-qualify themselves somehow. Offline events, very easy experiment. Talk with the guys at the spot, say, hey guys, I would like to host a meetup for developers, marketers, business guys, whatever your target group is. I want to talk about this. Can you do this for me? I sponsor drinks. I'm happy. I think they're happy to host events here, right? Yes. Very easy. Trade shows. Oh, trade shows. Before you kind of think of investing into in a booth in a trade show, the best thing is, one, going to the trade show yourself first as a guest, seeing who's there, are these relevant people, and checking out if it wouldn't be enough to actually go from booth to booth yourself. 2, if you can't go there, talk with someone, find someone who's been there, try to get the experience to kind of pre-analyze if it makes sense for you, not from the people you can reach. Other examples? There were pretty many. Yeah, actually the public relations example, so it's more about the way you start is here. PR, if you call conventional PR, getting the big media, it's not something you can try, you can send to some journalists, cool article, but what interests them, yeah? No one is interested if you launch, like, unless it's something really special. But if you raised funding, that could be interesting for some tech PR, tech blogs or tech media. If you had like this kick-ass advisor on board who is serial entrepreneur and had founded 10 startups and happened to have the last name Zuckerberg, whatever, or Peter Thiel, yeah, that's worth writing about. Or if Madonna is on board, that's worth writing about. But hey, we've launched, unless it's really kind of something special, it doesn't. Good. Does variety work better in B2B or B2C? B2C. Unless you figure out a good way why businesses convert other businesses for you. Usually, not many have figured out that. So, who has the marketing traction experience here? What's your channels?
Marketing? Well,
What have you tried? Would like to learn from you guys.
well, most of them. Search engine optimization, search engine marketing works quite well for us.
Yeah? What do you do?
So we do the English language testing online. So now.
Oh, so Busu is a...
So Busu is the learning platform.
Okay.
We do the testing.
Okay.
Assessment.
Do you know them?
Yeah, I know them. Well,
Okay.
well, yeah. I tried to approach them, but they didn't reply. So yeah, search engine marketing works for us, for example, quite well as well. So we are now like paying customers in 50 countries just thanks to the.
Why does it work? Because of your unit economics? What they pay and how many convert this?
Yes, probably, and also it's quite probably really kind of.
There is one thing which I would maybe add.
Yeah, please. As I said, I'm like by far not an expert in everything that is done here, especially not in all the channels.
Product, and so we are fantastic for cars. Yeah,
Okay.
We are fleet tracking.
Okay.
And we turned the product towards consumers. So instead of marketing it on the app stores as a fleet tracking product, we make a spin and we market it as a driver's product. So,
Okay.
So
Interesting.
and we build the product. So we're getting basically the users, the company users through individual drivers. So
That's interesting. It's okay.
So that's a repositioning B2B product towards consumers. That is driving some sales to us.
And how do you get to the drivers?
To the driver.
Yeah.
We market the product on the App Store as a GPS mileage tracker, and that's what drivers are
Okay.
searching for on the App
But
Store.
what happened? That's interesting. So I'm not a driver, but let's assume I was a driver and having a car, public transportation is good, so I don't use. Let's assume I would drive cars and would download now a GPS navigation tracker.
It's mileage tracker.
Okay, so I want to find out how efficiently do I drive, how much.
Mileage, or you're tracking your expenses.
Okay.
Fuel.
So okay.
But at the same time, we build in the product the features that are needed for companies, for larger companies.
And how do you? Okay, so I downloaded it, and let's assume I work for Siemens or any company that has a big fleet. How do you now go to the business side? How do you convert business to be your customer?
A business.
Yeah, after I have downloaded. Let's see my work.
So you downloaded the app, you use the app, and you see all the features that are also useful for if you have more users. So we enable all the features also for multi-user business scenario. So you can see that in the product, and then it pops up. Aha! I can.
But does it happen then I, as a user who works in a company, goes then to someone in the company and says, hey, that could be useful?
We had several clients.
That's cool.
They downloaded it, they tried it, and they use it for multi-users.
So that's, I think that's a good growth hack for you.
It gives us, it targets the small one. It's not targeting the big companies.
Yeah.
They're not going to the app stores.
Yeah.
But the smaller companies, one-man, two-man show, 10 people companies, they go there and they
Okay.
search for it.
Interesting. But do you do sales? Do you do sales still?
No, we don't pick up phones.
Emails?
Sorry?
Emails? Do you reach out to companies by emails?
We track the ones who have multi-users during the trial. Okay, if we see the company, okay, this company has 10 users, it seems as a prospective client, then we send them an email like, hey, do you need anything, like how everything is working, and but other, like a one-man shows, no emails.
Okay.
Would not get any economy.
Okay. Interesting. Interesting. Cool.
But I guess it's the same approach than you mentioned that I'm selling antivirus program, yeah? And I'm not targeting companies, but I'm targeting the guys.
Should I just imagine it that way, or are you?
No. I'm just saying it's, I guess,
Okay.
a bit of the same approach.
Oh, okay. When I first get.
So you don't target the company, but
Dropbox had the same strategy. Like initially, the guys, IT guys,
could be.
Started to use Dropbox, and from them it spread to consumers.
Well, so this can work for certain products.
Yep.
Doesn't have to though.
Try.
But, okay. Interesting. Any other experiences you would like to share?
Yeah, I worked for a startup in 2009 before startups were cool, and we basically we went to trade shows and made cold calls for webmasters to use our affiliate network.
So you have an affiliate network.
We had, I was part of that.
Okay.
And so there was a lot of going to trade shows, gaining trust of the webmasters and the various companies. So like, hey, hello, send us our traffic, we're a sponsor, and so on. So it was a.
But basically, in this case, interesting because you're two things. You were on the one hand a channel yourself for others. On the other hand, trying to acquire customers there. So that's a very interesting position to be. And like, so was it specialized in anything? Affiliate wise?
Entertainment.
It's a strong industry.
Yeah, it is.
I actually have a friend who is in the same industry, Budapest, and it's a tough industry though. Like it's very competitive, and also getting the channels is also very competitive bidding, I've heard. So any innovations there is great. Oh, by the way, so we talked about this in an earlier coaching session with some startups. One that was trying to be in the gambling space, and we theorized, that was an input from our participants, that if you want to attract gamblers, it's a group, which channels to use, what would you, where would you go? And one suggested that actually it would make a lot of sense, and maybe you can say it's true or not, to be on adult entertainment sites, because you have like a certain cross section of both groups. I mean, both groups men. So I don't know. Is it true? What's your experience?
It was mostly from other
Adult.
other
Yeah.
sites. Tube sites were a big
Okay.
driver of that
Okay.
traffic.
Interesting. It's a huge. I mean, it's a huge industry. No one admits it, but a lot of people watch all the time. I mean, but you know what? That's a very interesting. Where does Facebook doesn't work? I bet to you there are very, very few people who just watch this porn video on YouPorn I shared on Facebook. I bet for them it doesn't work at all. Reddit might work. For sure it might work. Twitter maybe more anonymous, but Facebook I'm sure it doesn't work. Like no way,
They
no
don't
way.
have a lot of likes, that's right.
Yeah, well, liking the page is one thing, but sharing on my Facebook page that I'm, watching now, I don't know, whatever situation.
Because they will shut you.
Yeah, so, that definitely doesn't work.
But you have a nice network at Foodcourt, actually. Good idea.
What? He has a nice network?
No, you got a nice network of startups. So if I share something on your Facebook,
I don't want to hear. I'm here to talk about channels, like not be one.
Not be one.
And yeah, like I would really, like I said, I'm for me, you know, the reason why I'm doing it is discussion. I want to learn something true, and it kind of forces me to structure my own thoughts. And I think actually that book by Justin Mars is I can highly recommend. It goes really into each channel deeply on the one end. Also, like they have their own framework designed on how to actually, before your pre-product market should experiment, how to select, how to choose. So it's a lot of interesting. It's like what I did back in the days was also having my Excel sheet. You know, be there. We had different channels, but I didn't cover all of them, obviously. But actually, we did a lot of them, trying to do. And I also had my Excel sheet and trying to get my thoughts together of what kind of worked, what didn't work, and trying to, where it was possible, get direct data from the channel itself. Otherwise, get aggregates. Okay, where we did the campaign, what was 1 week later and 2 weeks later, and stuff like that. So, but they really nailed it in the book.
You mentioned that you put it to the Excel.
Yes.
So how do you calculate the contribution of, if you have, for example, contribution of the various channels?
So, like, I mean, it depends. If you're like in a growth mode already, it's a different story. But let's assume you're in pre-product market fit and you design like experiments, right? So either you use certain tools and actually you can combine a lot of measurement in Google Analytics, but there are far more even powerful tools that you can use. Depends the questions, do you want to get used to them and understand it, integrate everywhere? You could, right? Another thing is the simple way, if you want to experiment first around this. So you dedicate weeks. Some things it might work, some others it doesn't work. Dedicate weeks and try, 1 week or 2 weeks, this thing, and observe what happens next week or that week. It depends on which channel you are, right? And then, you close the campaign, experiment. Next week, you try this, this, and this, and see the effect. So it's like, it's an assumption of, I think it's called ceteris paribus in Latin, where all else being equal. That's the easy way. Of course, you can do I get the best tools out there and combine KISS metrics with Google Analytics, with 5,000 other tools. Sure, please go on. It's just a question of how much time do you want to spend in understanding how it works.
I would just
Yeah.
one simple question. How do you promote yourself on Reddit?
Officially?
Yeah.
And then we shut the camera.
So officially, Reddit is a platform for people who like to share interesting content, and the community decides if content is interesting, yes or no. Like Slido voting up, but I can also vote down in Reddit. So ideally, technically, so officially, okay, officially two ways. People that are not from your company write about your company or your service and what they think about it, and put it there. Let's reach some people, and most other people discover it either because it popped up at them or they search for something and discover it there. Officially. The second official way is actually in Reddit is now an advertising channel itself. You can buy advertisement on Reddit. That's the official. Cameras on?
Can I just
We'll talk later about the unofficial.
Can I just guess? I mean, so I pay people on Fiverr who are increasing the views of the article. That's the black way. For example.
You mean sending the link to people and
So,
saying
for
upload it,
example,
or?
what I would do is I would write an article. I
Yes.
would claim I'm not from my company.
Yes.
And then I would have either my friends voting for it,
Mhm.
so uploading it, or I just pay people on Fiverr who are reading it and you're increasing. Yeah?
I think it's cheaper to buy people from mechanical tour
Or yeah.
So well, that's one possibility, for sure. But just think about that way that the degree of organic upvotes, like non-initiated upvotes, right, and the people you reach, will also depend on your score, on your Reddit score. And now if you just created an account and suddenly happen to write about a company where you're officially not associated with, I mean, the community is quite smart in Reddit. They're very, it's, you can promote, like you can say I'm from the company, but it's difficult, you know, it's one thing if you say I want to promote my company here. It's another thing is we are doing this and it's available here. Let's talk later.
Similar on Slashdot, you know that site for
I've never tried myself.
Slashdot. Well, they call it slash advertisements.
Yeah.
And they're basically entries where it screams advertisement, but it's not advertisement. So the community, it has a large community, and they call it slash advertisement, hidden advertisement.
There's, no, you could, it can, if you do it the wrong way, it can harm you. Just one thing. Sorry, like, and I mean, I think that's not a secret though. If people go directly to your link on Reddit, so if you share the link with me and say please upvote, it actually has a very different effect than if I was searching for something. Then in the search results, I click on it and go from there and then upvote it. The upvote is counted very differently. But I think that's not a secret. And it's also not a secret that there are companies that were actually pushing towards creating content and then asking other people to vote it up. Once, you know, and Reddit is also not very stupid. If you do it on a small scale, it's everything else. But if you're a huge company and have suddenly like 1,000 people accessing from the same IP, they were actually severely punished in Reddit terms.
Slashdot was similar, that you get Slashdot when a lot of visitors come to your site, and it basically shuts down, or the server gets restarted, and you don't have access to it if you're not prepared. So that's another side effect.
I think it can really damage. Once we connected with one app
Okay.
that has many downloads, and we were there as a, hey, why don't you try this app that is complementary or something. We got really a lot of downloads, but because that people just tried it, it was not users who really actually wanted to use the app. Then Google find out that, you know, they don't getting any active users out of these downloads, and he actually downgraded us. Okay, so once we stopped the co-promotion with that other app, we just saw the decline on the ranking of the app stores, because we had really many downloads, but we didn't have active users out of it, because people are really not interested in
Yeah, that's,
they didn't come through the search. So exactly, the user coming through the search is someone who wants it.
So that's why it's, you know, so important that to understand channel mechanics. But again, I mean, the depth of your channel mechanics understanding, when you're very beginning, just experimenting, can be very different. You know, the level of it needed to be than if you're pushing for more. You can get away with a lot of things in small scale, but you can't get away from the big scale. I mean, search engine optimization, it's crazy, you know, things that you need to do, can't do, shouldn't do, must do, to be like white hat, black hat, some are gray hat. Like, I mean, talk with these guys who do this for a profession, it's crazy. You know, things that you can do in Google Penalize, I mean, they're like rules of thumb, right? But what does it mean in detail then, when you actually execute it? So there's, I mean, the rule of thumb is the more backlinks you have, great. The more suitable content you have that actually fits with the keywords, great. But to start, you can do it, right? For starting, it gets more and more an issue when you scale up. You look like you want to contribute.
No, I'm just looking at the question.
Oh, sorry. Can some experiments in marketing? I'm sorry, I just usually, you know, I'm spoiled from Finance Festival. We have an additional Slido screen in front of me, I'm sorry. Can some experiments in marketing lead to destroying the reputation of a startup, e.g. pushy sales calls? What's a pushy sales call? Well, cold calling is not necessarily, you see, that's a channel bias. People say, if I do sales by using the medium phone, it's sleeky, it's pushy, it's something evil. I don't do it, I don't like it. I mean, what is pushy? Yeah? Are you going to call and say, hey, you, buy this product or I'm going to kill you? Yeah, yeah. Of course, that could vary in your reputation, right? But like, you know, if you just have regular manners and have still a sales mindset approach, which is being friendly but still being strong, you know, how much can you screw up through in your reputation? Like what? I mean, I don't think so. I don't think so. Unless, of course, you're lying and cheating and threatening and yes, but if you do it, it's a regular thing, especially experimenting. What does an experiment mean? You call 50 companies of a market of 5 million and ask them if they're interested in a solution. What are they going to do? Their companies now, the CEO is going to post on Twitter, hey, this guy called me, tried to sell me something, kill him? No. I mean, I never say never, you know, you can get very unlucky, but usually no.
Or you can call people in Hong Kong, they don't know you, you know, so you just yourself. You know?
But even if they, so like, I mean, the advantage of calling people who don't know you is it's a stronger test. If you call up your buddies from business school or from you work together at co-working space, and if you manage to sell them, it has a very different quality than selling people you don't know. Same is, I mean, it's unfortunate, but it's also something that Fred Destin, who was one of the pioneer speakers, said. You know, if you are like doing a service for telecoms and try to sell to Slovak Telecom based in Slovakia, because your buddy from business school was there, it has a very different quality than if you sell to the telecom in France or Luxembourg. That's a different, it's unfortunate, but it's a different proof of credibility. But no, I don't think, like, what is pushy? No. My Apple,
will help, I guess.
okay, my app will help people to find buddies for different activities, share things. My plan when in beta version, but plays animation on Indiegogo enough?
I guess that's how he wants to start the marketing, with the ad on Indiegogo before launch.
What is animation though?
I guess video, just a video.
Oh, so an Indiegogo campaign. Is it?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so was it someone from you?
What? No.
Okay, if it's someone from the stream,
I guess, yeah.
if this is about, if I want to do an Indiegogo campaign, no. Why? So, like, first of all, in general, it's a rule of thumb, crowdfunding works quite well if you do it right for hardware. It works okay if you do it right for gaming. It usually doesn't work that well for software, social media, and stuff like this. There's just very few use cases of people who made it work that well. And regardless of, you know, as I said, channels are differently utilized for something else. And what crowdfunding is, actually, that's a very good point. Thank you. It should be an additional channel here on these 19, because crowdfunding is, you know, not something that you should do when you want to test someone. What it's supposed to do, you can still use it that way, but what it's supposed to do, actually, from the logic of it, is it's a channel, you have a prototype, let's assume it's hardware, you are now ready for mass production, but you need cash to, you know, pay your suppliers and deliver it, right? Crowdfunding is something where I, as a user, usually expect to pay a price which might be cheaper than if I would purchase later, but be among the first to get that product. It's not about, with some exceptions, testing the market. And crowdfunding campaigns, you know, it's about, you know, generating pre-orders, generating sales revenue for you. And the one thing that's a mistake, and I actually talked with the head of expansion for Indiegogo in Western Europe. I don't know how they segment the countries. He was in Vienna. One of our talks was really cool. Like, most people use crowdfunding completely wrong. They think just being present there, having a campaign, will already generate anyone to contribute to it. No. When you do a crowdfunding campaign, what you want to do is, before the campaign actually starts, do a lot of PR work, generate emails from people that you then, once the campaign starts, now activate to sign in, because there's this green bar effect. You know, once you reach within, what did it say? I think if you reach within 48 hours or something, 25 or 30%, something like that. I'm not sure. Look it up. They actually have a guideline of references they do. Then the likelihood of people in actually discovering a campaign because of the velocity of things moving in, is like exponentially higher than if you didn't have this. And it's also like, think of you, would you be the first one wanting to invest in a campaign where the bar is 0? You're like, But when the bar is like 20-30%, like, yeah, okay, it sounds pretty good. Wow, in just 2 days I'll do it. So crowdfunding to have a chance of being successful needs a lot of preparation, and unfortunately, I've seen a lot of people doing it without the preparation and then being disappointed. We're talking about months of preparation. We're not talking about a week. We're talking about creating a great video, creating great content, creating product description, really thinking about what are the perks that I can give to people in which price categories. Already creating pre-signups, already building up relationships with certain medias or bloggers, or think of PR stunts, and that's an accompanied campaign. It's not only being present there. So, no, will be not enough. I'm sorry.
What do you think of crowdfunding?
In general?
Is it good way how to find your product or to make your startup real?
No. I don't want to say no. There have been cases, yes, but I wouldn't bet on it though. I would.
Easier finding investors or?
No. So there's a difference between crowdfunding and crowd investing. Crowdfunding, the idea of crowdfunding is I have a product, I'm basically ready to produce it, all right? And you as my customers pay me for my product, and I promise to deliver it you in a few months. But I've already had to have something being on the stage. I mean, as far as I understood, the Americans are a bit more bold. They create a video of this is what we're going to do and then start building it. It's a big risk. Why? Because if I crowdfund your campaign, I have a certain expectation. And you have to give me a promise, right? To say in 6 months you get a product. If I haven't done anything, there is no way, unless I'm extremely lucky and an extremely genius guy and a perfect team, that can execute in 6 months to have a serious production of hardware being shipped to you. No way. Usually, unless it's a very easy thing to do. And that creates disappointment, and that really ruins your reputation, and then people want their money back. So you do a crowdfunding campaign, funding, or investing, when you're ready to produce, right? Ready, and just need prototype ready, just need the money to pay your suppliers that they produce it, and they can ship it out. Crowd investing is different. Crowd investing, you say, I want to do this, and I'm looking now not for 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 business angels, but I'm looking for a crowd of people who believe in this project and invest in it. But they expect a return. And there are different crowd investment platforms. Like there are ones where the investor promised a financial return. The others, as far as I understood, I haven't looked extremely deep into crowd investing, to be honest. There are others where it actually structures a loan, I think, or converted from loan to equity. And there are some others where they, have a social benefit behind it and want to invest in it. But that's different. Crowd investing is, I have this idea, I want to do this, I'm qualified, invest in me. And that depends on, again, what your product is, how well you prepare the campaign, because just being present there will not bring you anything. You already need to get people on board, like family, friends, their friends, people are interested, go in the right communities, might be interested, providing traction before the day 1 of starting a campaign.
What are the other ways how to fund?
Investors?
No, how to fund your product. Or how to make your startup real.
Also, the usual path is to first go for the 3 Fs, family, friends, and fools. And or own money. So after, and then on the same hand, reducing your cost of living significantly. That's what Paul Graham calls becoming at some point ramen profitable. So earning enough money that you can eat 3 times ramen a day, like noodles. Never mind. So the family, fools, friends, own money can get finding business angels. They don't have to invest a lot at the beginning, right? They small tickets if you're a 2-man team. It can bring you a lot if you're doing software and just need your notebook basically, and if you cloud service that you pay monthly. Finding business angels, can work for others. And there are 2 ones. They're the ones that are active startup business angels, who people usually know in the community and who invest a lot of startups. And there are others who are maybe has been a consultant for 10 years or an investment banker for 10 years, and he's now startups are sexy, interesting. Maybe you know me or a friend, he introduce you and say, hey, invest in me. That's a possibility.
So you think
Or of course, accelerators.
So you think the crowdfunding is not the best way how to start a business?
Which business? Software?
Let's say hardware.
Well, before you have done anything,
No, when you're prepared.
Well, it's do you want to bet on it alone?
No, with a team, of course.
No, I'm not. No. I mean, is the only source of funding you're betting crowdfunding? Look, it depends. If you have an extremely successful campaign, and I'm talking about these campaigns like Pebbles, all right? Boom. Yeah, I don't know how many million it was. Yeah? That's a lot of money. That it's enough to run the company for a while, you know. I assume. I don't know I met Eric. He's a fun guy to party with, but I don't know their company details and numbers. But it should be enough to actually get you a long while. How did they do the funding before? Because they had some already runway before they do it. I don't know. It could be, but would I bet on it alone? Especially considering, like, it again, unit economics. So it depends if you can charge a price for a customer saying, give me 100 euros per device and you get one shipped. And in reality, your cost of shipment is $5 or $10, like until the product is produced. Yeah, the sure hell. But it's going to be a little bit difficult to get it that way. Because either the product production is something that can be produced extremely cheap, or you need to achieve a certain scale that can produce cheap. So if the difference of what it actually, because when you do crowdfunding and let's say 10,000 people say yes, I pay 100 euros here, right? It's $1 million you have, all right? But you have to produce this 10,000 units. And how much of the money that you just raised will just go into producing that units and shipping to the units, including having a time of cost where people send back and you have to prepare to exchange it. I don't know. I mean, if the units economics allow it, you can try it. But usually what people do is it's accompanied. You know, they can do its crowdfunding as a great, this is demand test. We had the prototype, people want it. Now they're investing on board. But you can, unfortunately, the summary of the whole thing, it depends. But again, if you want to do it, then prepare it months before. And there are like guides both from Kickstarter and Indiegogo on how to do crowdfunding campaigns well, best practices. Most people just, I have a text, I have a picture, I have an idea, why there's no one funding me? Are you surprised? Right, guys, I mean, like, I'm happy to close the discussion, happy to continue it as you really like. I'm also here at the bar for a few more drinks. No more questions? I've been looking.
Okay.
Yes. Wait. Sorry. Please.
Sorry for it. I have maybe follow-up question to this Reddit question.
Yeah, sure. After that, actually.
Have you seen or successful in small-scale usage of Quora or generally?
Yeah, Quora. Actually, like some people manage to do it.
I've seen in a lot of comments to some questions. I work for company X, and we can solve your problem. Or
Quora is for some, like, I mean, again, the thing is, who is on Quora, right? It's not the whole worldwide population that is also on Facebook, right? It's a specific group, usually more tech-savvy, knowledge worker, you know, these kind of people. So if kind of you fit in the profile of Quora, it's great. It's great, definitely. But it's also one thing that's becoming now a really big platform to bet on, to use. But it's definitely. And also what it does is just second is, it depends on the Quora posts, but you know, if you're in the top answers of one of the posts that receives a lot of enters, is high rank content, what it automatically does for you is that is optimized in the search engine, is ranked high on Google as well.
Really? It's not like, I think they are not adding the rank to Google, I think.
Well, I don't know how the mechanics work, but it happened to me when I was asking a question on Google. It happened very, very often that on the top 5 rankings, Quora was ranked. So I don't know why it's that way. I assume because they have a lot of backlinks there built up over the time on the one hand, and it's probably Google seen as, but I've seen.
Yes, but it's not, doesn't add, if you post the link, it doesn't add.
Oh, no. It doesn't increase yours. No. Sorry, miscommunication. It does not increase your search engine optimization as a startup, but Quora is often ranked high, the answer itself. So it's not only people who are regular users on Quora who see it, but you have a chance of getting a lot of random people there who just happen to look for a question, click on Quora, would never create a Quora account and scroll to the answers. Sorry, because it's usually ranked high. Not it doesn't rank you higher. But yeah, thanks for it. But it's definitely great, depending on the target group. Yeah. But I think there it makes a change. I'm not extremely familiar with Quora. I have an account, time to time, ask things and do things, but I think it really depends on your reputation too, and you can build it up.
Yeah, and they are quite strict because I was also from the.
You have to be careful.
It's coming to the question about the experiments.
Yeah, it's like a small scale fair, but it's if you overreach a experiment without understanding the channel mechanics, could go wrong.
Yeah. We have like answer to 10 or 15 questions there, and if you have a question, you have for 6 consecutive months we have still sign-ups from that page. But it's sort of small scale, but it generates content, generates users.
Yeah, it actually, that's a good thing about it. If it's a question people usually regularly ask, the regularly new ones end up being there, coming there, right? So but you have to again understand a bit more the channel mechanics. Quora use it from time to time, but I'm by far away from really understanding how everything is working together, but definitely a good way. But again, it's one way of using a platform already. And the question, and the interesting thing is, in these kind of settings, like tech, savvy developer, it's so interesting that a lot of things automatically fall here, different platforms that fall to different social media here, right? But it's still so many other options open that people don't try enough, I think. So, if I may close with a summary. No, I don't have. I forgot to have a summary slide. So, yes. No, that wouldn't be. No, that wouldn't be. That would it be. Startup traction building isn't about corporate marketing. It's not about you doing everything. It's about finding out what works best for you, regardless of what your biases are, regardless of what other people tell you what worked for them, because you don't know if it's going to work for you. Finding that one or few at max channels that really work for you, focusing on them, and understanding that what works for you in the first phase, before you have product market fit, and what moves the needle will be very different once you are in the growth phase. There are very, very different things works. Usually just to visualize it, right? It's not usually such a growth curve. It's not. It's something that goes. So you always have these humps there, and these humps usually are when one channel is saturated for you, for your product, and doesn't deliver as good as it was when you were smaller, and then you need other ones. So just keep this in mind. So but as you do with product development, it's very easy. With product development, you constantly develop your product, you optimize it, you learn from customers, right, what they want. The same you do with channels. You constantly experiment, learn, and adjust them based on where your customers are and what they react to. If you just don't do this separation and start from the start of thinking about traction from the beginning, then a lot of the things you already get in the right way. If you think of, I built the product first and then later on I try to find out how I get customers, it's a more dangerous path. All right, so thanks a lot. It was a pleasure. I'm here for, drink, yes, we are. So happy to talk with you and bye to the people who have no more questions here on the live stream. It was a big pleasure. Thank you.